Injuries and buys. Enough said. Today I'm bringing you 10 stashes that you need at the end of your bench to help your team as we approach the fantasy football playoffs. If you like winning, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button as we are on the way to 3,000 subscribers here on the new 4for4 Fantasy Football YouTube channel. We started off with stash number 1. It is going to be Blake Corum for the Los Angeles Rams. And no, Kyren Williams is not going away easily, but Blake Corum is somebody who had a 28% snap share in week 9 and is somebody that I just want on my roster going forward. He had 13 carries for 58 yards, 4.46 yards per carry. And there were drives where it was just the Blake Corum drive. And so I think it is a benefit to Kyren Williams. We're seeing a little bit more explosion from Kyren Williams not having that massive 85% snap share. But Blake Corum is somebody that he's probably not going to have full starter level value unless something were to happen to Kyren Williams, but he does have sneaky stash upside, and potentially, if you're super desperate on a week, potentially has a little bit of flex value as well if he might find the end zone, and if we continue to see the snaps overall increase. Over on Sleeper, he is only 16% rostered, and so I want to be taking a shot on Blake Corum. This offense is super electric with Matty Boy Stafford, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua. I want a piece of this at a very cheap price. Give me Blake Corum as my first level stash this week. My second stash this week is going to be Tank Bigsby, and we're going to be kind of breaking this down by all the running backs that would be stashed in the wide receivers. Tank Bigsby, we saw put up 10.4 fantasy points in week 8 before this bye. Now, we got Saquon Barkley, who's dealing with a growing injury in week 10. I assume Saquon Barkley is going to perform, but what we did see from Tank Bigsby was 9 carries for 104 yards. This Philadelphia Eagles offensive line is a different beast than the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line. So if for some reason Saquon Barkley were to get injured down the stretch, Tank Bigsby would become an absolute league winner. So if you own Saquon Barkley, make sure you get Tank Bigsby. And if you need a high upside shot and Blake Corum's not available out there on your waiver wire, then go add Tank Bigsby. Let's not forget, he was pushing Travis Etienne for carries. Of course, they traded him before the season because they drafted Bashal Tootin. Tank Bigsby is a guy that I think a lot of people are excited about if he were to get an extended run with the Philadelphia Eagles. He is only 23% rostered on Sleeper, so definitely a player that you could be adding on your overall team. Now, my third stash is going to be Dylan Sampson for the Cleveland Browns. And Dylan Sampson's 20% rostered over on Sleeper. Quinshon Judkins was dealing with a shoulder injury, but we have seen the snap share. And once we saw Quinshon Judkins go out in week 8, we did see Dylan Sampson have a 46 overall percent snap share. He did have 6 targets for 5 receptions and 29 yards. So he is kind of that perfect third down back. But if he were to get more carries, we saw him and his production profile out of the University of Tennessee. He was a top 10 running back for me in this last draft. I love some Dylan Sampson. I think if he got more extended run, I think in a normal draft class, he's probably like a 3rd round level talent. But since it was so deep, I mean, we saw Cam Scatterbo get drafted in the 4th. I want a shot on Dylan Sampson. My last running back that I would be trying to stash heading into week 10 fantasy football, it's going to be Isaiah Davis. And Breece Hall did not get traded. All of the Isaiah Davis owners were a little bit disappointed because he is 31% roster. So his rostership did go up overall. But Breece Hall is somebody that has, I don't want to say he has been injury prone, but has been inefficient. And I understand because his trade value was only a 3rd round pick, or that's what the Jets were trying to get and they couldn't get it, he's probably inclined to play pretty hard. Because if he's looking at himself going into free agency this offseason, he needs to prove himself to these NFL teams that he's an elite level back that deserves a payday. And so maybe the idea that he's just going to be able to sit out or he's going to come up with an injury to make sure that he doesn't get hurt going into free agency might be a little bit dramatic. But could we be talking about Isaiah Davis down the stretch when we're talking about him like going into the playoffs, week 14 versus Miami, week 15 versus Jacksonville, week 16 versus New Orleans? That's a juicy stretch of matchups for these Jets running attack. And if for some reason Breece Hall were to not be playing in those and Isaiah Davis profiles as the 3-down bell cow there, because we did see that in college, I would be super excited for Isaiah Davis. He would instantly be a top 22 level running back, which in these day and age with all of these injuries is 100% valuable. So go target some Isaiah Davis. He is only 31% rostered. I prefer Sampson, Bigsby, and Blake Corum, but Isaiah Davis would be my 4th if you're kind of just looking and scouring the waiver wire for a stash. Now we move on to the wide receivers that I would be trying to stash. And the first guy I'll talk about is going to be Jack Bech for the Raiders. And Jack Bech was drafted in the 2nd round. Specifically, Tom Brady was the one that wanted Jack Bech because I think Tom Brady looked at Jack Bech and he looked like Danny Amendola, looked like Julian Edelman, and he said, get that guy on my team. But what we saw this kind of season and how it's kind of played out so far is we did see Jack Bech. He's been playing behind Trey Tucker and Jakobi Meyers. But with this trade of Jakobi Meyers leaving, it kind of opens up this opportunity for these Raiders, of course, wide receivers. Now, the part that I will highlight is they did sign Tyler Lockett, and Tyler Lockett did start in that wide receiver 2 spot, like right off the bench. And so for me, I don't know what they have against Jack Bech, but I think they're going to have a plan. Chip Kelly talked about Jack Bech and how they do have a plan for him going forward. 6'1", 214. I want to be taking a shot on Jack Bech because I think out of all these receivers, like besides Trey Tucker, who's been the most electric, Deontay Thornton, Tyler Lockett, I think Jack Bech is probably the highest upside of those three. And so I do want to be taking a shot on Jack Bech. He's only 6% rostered. So maybe in a little bit of a deeper league, you do want to stash him. But I have, even in my more shallow leagues, been taking, an eyeful of him. Now, the part that I want to highlight with me talking about Jack Bech is he's playing on Thursday Night Football. So you are seeing this on Saturday. I am recording this on Thursday afternoon. So potentially Jack Bech popped off and you're not able to pick him up until the waiver wire. But I'm now just realizing this as I'm recording. So you know what? I still want you to keep in mind and keep Jack Bech up top of mind. Next guy is going to be Kyle Williams, 6% rostered. He is and was drafted to be probably the number 1 wide receiver for the Patriots, which is like crazy to say for a guy who wasn't drafted in the first round. But I mean, coming into this offseason, we weren't confident in Kayshon Boutte. We weren't necessarily confident in Stephon Diggs coming off of his major injuries. So a lot of people were excited about Kyle Williams, and he's kind of just put up a bunch of nothing burgers this season. But with the Kayshon Boutte injury, Kyle Williams' role has expanded. And so because of this is going to be an opportunity for him where he had 46% of the snap share in week 9. And so this Tampa Bay Buccaneers matchup is super juicy for all the pass catchers involved because I think it's going to be a super high scoring game. I want to be taking a shot on Kyle Williams. Like I said, I know Stephon Diggs, Pop Douglas were kind of the ones that got the most bump up with the Kayshon Boutte injury, also Matt Collins, but I think Kyle Williams needs to get himself involved here and somebody that I think has a lot of talent, and especially we kind of start to see these rookie level wide receivers in the back half of the rookie season kind of start to progress a little bit more, and I think that could happen for Kyle Williams. Now, the next guy I want to mention is he's still on IR. He's a little bit more rostered. It is Jayden Reed for the Green Bay Packers, 37% rostered. With Tucker Kraft going down, we talked about Jayden Reed in the stash video last week, but with Tucker Kraft going down, I mean, I don't trust Christian Watson. I mean, you trust Romeo Doubs, but he doesn't have the biggest upside. I think for this offense to achieve what it needs to achieve this season, Jayden Reed's going to have to be that guy. And so for me, he might not be back this week. He might not be back the next week, but we're talking like week 12 on. Jayden Reed could be an absolute league winner. He could be a plug and play wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 for you, somebody that you're throwing in your flex. 100% be going and making sure that Jayden Reed is not out there on your waiver wire. Put up 13.5 fantasy points and a 38% snap share versus Detroit week 1 before getting injured with that collarbone injury. So definitely go target and check out Jayden Reed. Next guy is going to be Jaylin Noel for the Houston Texans. And yes, Davis Mills is going to be the starting quarterback on Sunday. I understand it's kind of been based on the overall personnel. We saw him put up 11 and 11 in back-to-back weeks, and then he puts up a negative 0.3 overall fantasy football day with a 15% snap share in this week 9 matchup versus Denver. With everybody back healthy, they kind of relegated Jaylin Noel back to the bench. But I do think as we continue to go on, he kind of has shown that he's honestly the second best wide receiver in this overall Houston Texans wideout room. I understand that sometimes like a Christian Kirk will come back and all of a sudden they just give Christian Kirk's role right back to Christian Kirk, even though Jaylin Noel kind of deserved to keep it. I want to be banging the drum for Jaylin Noel. Yes, I prefer Reed, Kyle Williams, Jack Bech as the number 1 stashes, but we have seen if Jaylin Noel gets in any sort of opportunity, he ends up being a flex level option for you. So definitely want to be at least making sure that I'm stashing Jaylin Noel. If assuming I have the roster space, especially with some of these buys and injuries, you might not, but Jaylin Noel would be my last wide receiver that I would be trying to stash. Now, I like to give you guys some defenses to kind of look forward to in the coming weeks. Number 1, this defense the week 11 matchups are super, super nasty. So if you're going to hold 2 defenses, the Houston Texans, they're probably not out there. They're like 74% rostered on Sleeper, but I love their matchup going up in week 11 versus Tennessee. You're kind of targeting any of these teams targeting Tennessee. Miami Dolphins also, they of course trade away Phillips. So you're a little bit worried about that defensive line. but they are going up against Washington in week 11 with no Jayden Daniels. I think this Washington offense could be absolutely atrocious. And so if you want to at least make sure that you're beating the waiver wire, I do think the Dolphins, if the Commanders put up a stinker game on Sunday, we could be talking about the Dolphins being the #1 defensive priority ad heading into week 11. So just getting ahead of that curve. Miami Dolphins would be a good defense that I'd like to stash. And then my last defense that I would like to stash, like I said, we're going over 10. So I apologize to John, my editor, because he only likes when I go to 10. But we're going to give you one more, would be the Atlanta Falcons defense. They're going up against Carolina in week 11. Like I said, it's nasty. If you look at the week 11 defensive matchups, my video on Tuesday is going to be absolutely disgusting with my defensive rankings, but those would be the 3 defenses that I'm kind of trying to target out of the gate. But if you like fantasy football, if you like winning, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. As like I said, we are trying to grow this channel. We're answering every start sit question down below. So we want you a part of this community, and absolutely hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you guys win your week 10 matchups, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.